In 2010, I was a novice storyteller. I had a young career in journalism, and I jumped in feet first into a feature-length documentary project I called Sustaining Iowa. The idea was finding the stories of people in Iowa who were focused on the health of the earth as well as the health of their community, and really highlighting that there are solutions-based people who are looking to the future in those respects. And I got in the car with my wife and a camera and started driving around and got about 4 stories in the can before, I wouldn't say I started to panic, but I started to feel that, man, I need a lot of time off from my full-time job. I needed some more money to drive around the state and pull this off. And ultimately, as the title of this video says, I abandoned that project. It failed. So I've put together about a half hour's worth of material that kind of fit under Sustaining Iowa umbrella. I'd like to show you the first 4 pieces of the project that were going to be in the documentary. And even as I was putting this together, I got really jazzed about the idea of the project. But, freelance or as an individual working with my wife as my documentary partner, it's just a lot to take in when I was in my mid-20s. And now with a couple of kids, it'd probably be just as hard unless it was under my full-time job producing documentaries. So after we watch these first 4 stories, I'll give a little more insight into why it failed and where I went from there.
In 1992, my wife Susan and I bought the dairy farm, and we began to slowly expand the herd as we increased the demand. So now we milk about 80 cows twice a day, and we have about 450 acres on this farm. And as you can see, the whole farm is planted to grasses, and it's split up into small pastures that we call paddocks. And so we have it set up so twice a day after each milking, the cows get a fresh section of grass. You can see how this is newly regrown grass, and now it's only April 17th today, and so the grass is just taking off for the season. Most dairy cows today are in confinement facilities, and so then, of course, all the feed has to be brought to the animals. But also, when cows are on concrete, it's not as good of an environment for them. It's harder on their feet, and it's harder on their health in general. Also, most cows that are in confinement are given a lot of corn. Corn is high in energy and gives a lot of milk, but it is not conducive to their digestion, and they get acid stomachs and they get a variety of metabolic problems. And so cows that are in this kind of a system normally do not live as long. They normally live about 2 to 2.5 years, whereas on grazing dairy farms they can live pretty long. We have some that are running around here that are 10 years old. There are many advantages to the cows harvesting their own feed. One is that we avoid all the energy it takes to harvest it ourselves. If, for example, the cows were by the milking facility and confined there, then we would have to take machinery and harvest the grass, bring it home, put it in storage, and then feed the animals every day from that storage, and then collect the manure and take it back and spread it on the field again. So they harvest their own feed, and at the same time, while they're harvesting it, they spread the manure in the pasture just where it needs to be. And so then we avoid all that energy cost that it takes to do that. I think that we need to make Iowa agriculture more resilient and more energy efficient. We eat about $8 billion worth of food in Iowa every year, but 80 to 90% of it comes from out of state, which is kind of ironic considering that we think we are the food capital of the world and we have to import all that food. So if we could produce more of that in Iowa, it would also put more money in the pockets of farmers, and it would make available more fresh food, locally produced food. Another thing is that our corn and soybeans, especially in northern Iowa, are usually, the soils that they're grown on are tile drained. And the purpose for that is to take the excess water out so that it's not too wet for the crops. The problem with that is that, well, the water takes with it nitrate. Nitrate is a nutrient that is a pollutant, and it can get into our drinking water. But also it can get into the river system and down to the Gulf of Mexico, where it contributes to the hypoxia zone, which is called the dead zone. So that's another offside effect of agriculture if it isn't sustainable or isn't retaining the nutrients on the land. The markets in agriculture are becoming increasingly concentrated. For example, 4 corporations that process beef control 84% of the beef processing market. 4 corporations control 65% of the hog processing market. And economists tell us that when 4 corporations control 40% or more of a market, it stops acting like a free market and starts acting more like a monopoly. I would like to see more things where we can, farmers have control of the markets, like local food production, where farmers set the prices for their products. Or value added, where if we could produce biofuels on the farm to power the farm, then farmers have control of that. So we can put the profit from those kind of activities right in the pocket of farmers. And that would help to repopulate our rural communities, add more jobs and more prosperity for rural communities.
You know, trying to grow vegetables in Iowa is not the same as trying to grow vegetables in California. It's a completely different climate. It's much harsher here. Temperature swings. We're extreme cold in the winter, extreme hot in the summer. And you know, I need a greenhouse. They don't. You know, so there's costs involved. So I can't really go head to head with them. But what I can do is provide a local product, something that's cut that day, delivered to them, you know, within hours of when it was harvested, fresh, beautiful, and the customers love it. We've been going about 8 years now. A lot of what we did at the beginning was retail, and then we also have this, we've developed a relationship with Whole Foods Midwest Distribution Center, and they distribute to about 30 stores in the Midwest out of there. But what we find is when we sell to a store, basically they'll take the product and mark it up 50%. When we sell to Whole Foods, they'll take the product and mark it up 350%. So the point is that customers are willing to pay a lot more than the farmers we're ever going to get for our produce, and they're happy to do it in certain locations. So we've tried to shift the whole thing so we're maximizing the share of that absolute end consumer price that we can get. And the CSA model is a great way to do that. So the CSA model, basically every week we put together a box. So we had Iowa's first all winter long CSA. It started in November and ran through April. It was a huge success, actually. We actually pulled it off. Really nice boxes. We had about $15 of produce going to all of our customers. They were paying $12.50 a week for it. And that works for us, because if we would have sold at the store, we would have gotten less. And if they would have gone to the store, they would have paid $15 for it instead of $12.50. If someone's concerned about the environment, then sooner or later they're gonna run into agricultural issues. I mean, it's what covers most of the land in the country. It needs to be addressed, you know, in terms of even things like animal population densities equate to probability of disease. And what we're doing right now, never in the history of mankind have we had animal population densities like we have in these things. And the way we deal with it was through antibiotics, and there's issues with that too. Antibiotic-resistant organisms, MRSA. And worldwide, a lot of the problems in farming are not going to be solved with a silver bullet. You know, I think some things here, it's great to have local product, like what we're doing for the CSA is a great model, but it's not the answer to everything. It has to do with communities. It has to do with the productions there, that the environment isn't contaminating other aspects of the population in order to produce this. I mean, it's all about relationships. And so the averages for yield, it's around between 140, 150 for organics right now. And again, there's a vast amount of lack of information, lack of knowledge, lack of training, lack of expertise in the organics. All that follows the big money, and it's all about chemical agriculture. We're still on the yield curve. We're right behind the conventional yields. But you got to take it one step further. What are we growing? It's food. We're not growing, you know, sacks of rocks. We have overfed, undernourished people on this planet. It's just as big as a problem as underfed, undernourished people. In both cases, a nutrient-dense product would serve them better. I'd rather see them at least getting nutrient-dense product in them rather than useless carbohydrates and toxins.
7 years ago, we really started to redesign the relationship between the farm and the school, and just the primary focus of the farm became feeding ourselves. And since then, we've just been trying to improve every year, add something new. A little background on Scattergood would be that the school was founded in 1890, so it's been here a long time. And of course, 120 years ago, it was probably much more expected that you would raise your own food and eat it. But the farm, as I understand it, is that during the 70s and 80s, it kind of acted as a profit-making venture for the school. And it wasn't so much about raising food for the students, but they did corn and soybeans, and they also raised a lot of pigs, feeder pigs. What happened then, of course, was that hog confinements became in vogue. Production was ramped way up. If you were small, there was no profit in it anymore, and we were left with all this sort of small-scale hog infrastructure, but with no real market for the pork. So the potential was really clear that we could just totally reorganize what the farm was doing and try to grow as much food for the school as possible. What brought me to Scattergood was a commitment to peace and social justice. I graduated college at Iowa State in 1991. I spent much of the 90s traveling around the country, working in homeless shelters, doing organic farming in various places. So I came in 1999 and immediately just loved the idea of experiential education, students being involved not only in their food production, but in all aspects of what it means to learn. That Scattergood teachers really make a great effort to get students out of the classroom and doing things, putting the learning in a context. Scattergood is well suited to introducing farming into the academic life because we're owned by Iowa Yearly Meeting Quakers in Iowa. Quakers have a long history of being committed to peace and social justice and environmental sustainability and stuff like that. So there's been this really long history of just working with the land and being committed to trying to live well. And we don't really teach a class that's called sustainable agriculture. We had a number of students who would really get attached to the farm, that they would get up early in the morning, they were working in the kitchen with the produce, they were just really, really involved. But for the most part, kids look for that opportunity to get their hands dirty. They don't love weeding for 4 hours a day. But if we do it in 20-minute chunks, you look at a row, it looks ugly when you start, it looks beautiful when you finish. There's something beautiful and wonderful about that. We're actually ending up in a position where we're getting more and more farm kids, like parents who are really concerned about what their kids are eating. There's this push and pull between production and education because we need to eat, and one of our goals is to produce as much of the food as possible versus the real educational values that students leave here. And if they end up with 20 feet by 20 feet, they can go out there, dig it, plant peas in the spring, plant tomatoes in early summer, and know all that stuff. And I think that over time, if they stick with the farm, if they're out there seeing what we do on a relatively large scale, I think that they really learn that stuff.
So we're hoping this is our last paid for soil because we did need to turn the clay on this side more fertile and the rocks on that side more fertile. So now we're going to take the old sod when we first desodded it, a bunch of the greens that we're pulling out and weeding, and some food waste from the neighborhood. We want to start incorporating the neighbors into it more. And so we're hoping to shift from a pay other people for soil to just taking what we already have and making it into our own soil and making it into soil we can sell other people. So flipping it on its head, and we can actually make some money and make the garden sustain itself.
So there they are, the 4 stories that really, truly were sustaining Iowa. I learned pretty quickly that documentaries take time, they take a through-line character, and you can't just do it all on the weekend, especially if your producing partner has a full-time job that is not related to documentary work at all. My camera work, or lighting work if there was any, was pretty novice or beginner. And now I know a lot of the mistakes that I made. I've produced 2 feature-length documentaries since then. This is my most recent one here. It's called Dogs of Service for Iowa PBS. And if I were to do this now, it'd be much different. As 2010 turned into 2011, sustaining Iowa was really a back burner idea for me, and it had kind of one last gasp with something called the Farm Crawl in south central Iowa. And it's very close to what I thought sustaining Iowa was going to be, but it's not exactly the same thing. It's more of a self-contained feature. And I think I'll let you watch it here, and then we'll talk about what really kind of came of sustaining Iowa after that.
People think of conventional farming, this is what they should think of. Small family farms doing sustainable, diversified farms. And this is how we raise our food and how we raise our animals. And this is how we want to create the products that we want to share with you.
Jill and I, before we moved up here in 2005, we lived in Houston for 7 years. They had an annual event called the Art Crawl. And once a year, they all got together, I don't know who had the idea, of hosting a nighttime event where you'd go and tour the artist studios and the galleries and, you know, get snacks and wine samplings. And one day we were just talking and saying, that could be kind of fun. We could apply that idea, but do it with a collection of small family farms and diverse ones.
And we attended a business plan class for small farms in Ames. Drove all the way to Ames to meet 2 of our neighbors. So we first met Dandy Farms and Coyote Run by attending a class an hour and a half away.
This is the 6th year of our project, and we're trying to generate a family farm income off of this in a sustainable way. So if you think about my parents' farm, which is about a 1,000-acre farm, 10 times the size, 10 times the capitalization, 10 times the gross income, that kind of thing, we're basically trying to take this farm and do a 1/10 of all that, but do it in a way that it's using sustainable agriculture, and we're using relational marketing, so selling no commodities but products directly to consumers off of the farm.
Well, our most important crop is grass. We have raised horses, mules, all the chickens, everything likes grass. I mean, we still do the vegetable gardens, and we have some apple trees and things, but grass is probably the most important crop. We do grass-fed beef, so we have 16 cows here, and we'll finish 4 for grass next year. We'll keep 1, and 1 will go back to the farm for grain.
I am a corn farmer, corn, soybeans, cattle, and hogs, but this is a little different deal. Sean Skian came 5 years ago, and he'd kind of seen this. He asked if we would be interested, and he said, well, yeah, it can't do no harm. It might not do a lot of good, but it can't do us any harm. And, well, no one could comprehend it was going to turn out to be the way that it has. You know, it's just enormous.
A lot of people are surprised. Oh, you milk your own goats? You know, you make this? You know, they can come see. Yeah, we do. We raise the animals, we milk the goats. So it's a labor of love. 16-hour days, 7 days a week. You know, you got to enjoy it, or you wouldn't be doing it. You know, my commitment has been to healthy animals, natural, you know, certified organic whenever I can find it, and quality product. You know, even though it's more time consuming to do it this way, and that's really worked well for me. People appreciate the quality, and demand is far more than I can produce.
We always kind of have a good time, but like we're watching people walk around the farm, it's like these people are having a fabulous time. I mean, they're having crazy fun on our farm, and so it really was good for us, and really affirming that this is the right thing to do. This is the plan that we have is probably going to work.
I think it's the people from town are really the ones that enjoy it the most, the ones that aren't exposed to to livestock and to the countryside living, you know. Gives them a chance to run and walk through an orchard that, you know, doesn't mean a whole lot to me, but it seems to mean a lot to other people.
We always thought that our main pull would be from the city. We thought that most people in Des Moines would come out to the farm because people around here knew what was here, and we found out that we were really wrong.
In the first year, I would say we had maybe like 75% of the people on the farm crawl were coming from like greater Des Moines. Last year, we saw that almost flip, where maybe a fourth of the people are coming from Des Moines, greater Des Moines, and 75% of the people are coming from Knoxville and Pella and Sheridan and rural areas around.
I don't think people realize locally, like in our county, what all's going on with a lot of us at Farm Crawl, how we work together, how we're sustainable. You know, my manure goes to the vegetables at Blue Gate Farm. You know, the whey as a byproduct of my cheese making goes to the Stamps Farm to feed their, you know, pasture-raised hogs. I get hay from Coyote Run and Blue Gate. You know, how we can all work together and kind of try to make it on a small scale anyway. We're all working toward figuring that out.
So that says that this is a type of agriculture that has real potential, that hasn't been developed and it's starting to be developed, and that there's some real excitement around it.
This is how we did it, and this is, I think, some of the good things about what we did and that we've learned, and things I wish we had never gone down that road. And you know, so you live and you learn, and you hope to make it a better place for those who come after.
My wife, Marita, and I loved the farm crawl. We went so many years in a row. In fact, I think we went until she got pregnant in 2016, and it eventually ended. But I just love everything they said in that. I love those farms to this day. Some of those people, like Matt Russell, have gone on to work for the federal government, the USDA, and done really cool things. But Sustaining Iowa kind of ended with the farm crawl. I produced about 6 pieces after that were for Sustaining Iowa YouTube channel, which was like me, you know, keeping my claws in the name, but not really producing anything that was full-fledged connected to the documentary. We had no outside funding other than my wife and I spending, you know, our free fund money to make these things happen. So if something happened in Central Iowa that was kind of like Sustaining Iowa, original idea, I would throw it underneath the Sustaining Iowa YouTube channel. But really, for the next decade, it was kind of done. So these pieces are connected to it. There are farmers in here that I love. There's Buy Fresh, Buy Local, which was a really cool and strong program for about 15 years there. It's farmers markets. But really, these pieces aren't connected to the first 4 in a meaningful way, other than, you know, the idea that these people care about fresh and local food.
Are these local?
One of the things Buy Fresh, Buy Local is able to do with the directory, with our email on a weekly basis, is to provide some identity and to provide events like this that people are able to celebrate and recognize that this isn't just kind of a, you know, a farm here, a restaurant there, but there's really a larger effort here.
Last year we were like 2/3 of this room, and this year we're in the whole room. So, you know, we've expanded this year. We just see more and more energy around this. So you just have to think about ways to stay ahead of where people are so you can keep leading them into a healthier, fresher, more fantastic food system.
Eating local, eating healthy supports not only your family's well-being but the community's well-being. And I think ultimately food security from the standpoint of being able to feed ourselves is a really important thing we need to think about as we move forward into the future. So we'll be around a long time that way.
We learned that local food is very important. When the average product in a grocery store is shipped about 1,500 miles, we started looking at the quality of our food. So we started raising our own lamb. You know, I think we care more about what we're feeding our customers. I'm always very conscious of that. The people that you're seeing here today are the people that want to know who their farmer is, where the food is coming from, what are we feeding our animals. But yeah, there's definitely more of a connection today, I think, than even 5 years or 10 years ago.
I like how it hits people on all sorts of levels, whether they own a business or maybe they just like eating really good food. I mean, everybody can kind of come down, and this is the perfect way to put foodies having some fun. You know, harvest time of year, there's all these great products available. It's great to just eat and be merry together, you know.
We've been doing this for 15 years and our business has continued to grow. We enjoy being connected to the people that will be eating the product that we produce, and by selling to the consumer we get their feedback on how we can improve and things that they like about it.
We, as eaters, need to really evaluate where our food is coming from. And right now, Iowans are heavily dependent upon receiving food from a national supply chain as well as an international supply chain. And so that heavy reliance on those top two tiers of supply chains really creates a lot of vulnerability within our food system. And when we look at local and regional food supply chains, and if we can build those up, that would not only create more of a secure food supply system for all of us, but also put perhaps more fresh food, seasonal foods on our plates.
And so, sure, this is a great event. And, you know, whether it's the farmers making the connections or some people being able to sell things, local restaurants that use local ingredients being here, wanting to be part of it, this is a great success.
How does my garden grow? And looking out across the crowd today, Jenny, how did your garden grow? And it's all these people that are here this evening and those who couldn't make it. And again, we want to say thank you so much. And no, you don't come to the garden alone when you have this many people gathered here. And I've always said something, her father and I, if it's going to get done, Jenny's going to get it done. So as she goes 8,000 miles away, I will miss her dearly as well as her father. But we are so proud of her, and we're so thankful for everyone who came tonight. Thanks again.
See, you have your mom do it first. It's not so bad. Thanks, my family. Thanks for your continuous support and letting me know that it's okay to work this hard. even though I cry with my dad in the field and telling him that I don't want to do this anymore, but I really do. I want to say thank you. I told you all my thanks to people who actually got this happening. But as I always say on the farm, whenever we have our farm parties, a party is the people who make it. And the fact that you're here and the fact that you are supporting what people donated their time and money towards is an amazing feat that we always think as such a troubling battle. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Because I wouldn't be here if you weren't, and you wouldn't be here if I wasn't. Thank you.
If I should fall from grace with God when all darkness can't leave me, bury me in the soft still the angels won't leave me. Let me go, boys, go down in the mud when the rivers all run dry.
You can eat from Iowa year-round. Obviously, it's going to be a little hard to get a fresh tomato year-round, but everything that we had tonight, from the carrots and the cheese and the apples and the peppers and the raspberries, I mean, all this stuff we got it in the last 2 weeks. So, you can still have a great local fresh meal in the middle of October in Iowa.
This land was always our voice, the proud land of our fathers. Belongs to us and them, and not to any of the others. Let them go, boys, go down in the mud when the rivers all run dry.
I think it's cool. Look at the curve in those blades.
Yeah, I didn't realize.
Why do you think those blade tips are curved?
Get more wind?
No, it isn't. They're curved away from the tower. The problem is you don't want the blade to hit the tower as it goes around. So you kind of tilt the shaft up a little bit, and then you cone the blades out a little bit, and then you curve the tip of the blade, because it's going to hit the tower, it's going to hit it right at the tip of the blade. Because when the wind blows that really bends the blade way back. Turbine next year, the blades are 28 feet long. These blades, twist a little bit. In fact, from going down to the bottom, when they rotate up the top, there'll be a little motor in that will twist them a tiny bit, maybe 1 degree, as they go over the top, and then they'll twist back. And so because it's windier up here than it is down here. So if you're near full power, you need to feather this blade a little bit because it's going to put out too much power, too much torque. So you kind of feather it back a little bit, and then as it goes down here, it goes the other way and picks up a little more aggressive pitch. When they move this crane over to the other one, guess what? They pick the timbers up, and make a road of timbers.
To get over there.
Yeah, because you just would not trust running that off on the dirt. So this way they have some little forklifts, and they take the timbers off of one end and run around the other end, put them down, and then it slowly crawls from here over to the next one, all on timbers like that. This is it. Official signing of Pat and Marita's wind turbine blade.
So sustaining Iowa failed. Cards on the table, that's the reality of it. It takes a lot to make a documentary happen. You need time, you need money, you need to get to those places, you need the people that you contact to reach out and say they're willing to do it. So I hope you learned something from this project, and I don't know, here's a few bullet points for you. Plan out what you're going to do. Really think about the time it takes to make those things happen and the cost involved, and the understanding that you should probably do this with partners who have technical skill as well. So you get out there, you can make things happen, you can do your lighting in the way you want. Bring someone along like your spouse who is really into the project, and commit to editing it in the moment. Because if you're doing this as a side project or a side hustle, you're probably going to say, I'll get to that when I get to that, like I did. And when I actually extended some of these stories, the Francis Thicke, Vedic City, Scattergood, I added in about a minute to each of those, maybe more. And I realized if I had edited these in the moment, like days after capturing it, I would have kept that gas. And I don't know, maybe ask my parents or something for money to make it happen. So documentaries are a labor of love, require a lot of work, and sometimes boil down to 1 or 2 people. So if you go with a real plan and work your project in the moment, you might end up getting to the end and not telling a story like I am right now. So I'm sad to say Sustaining Iowa was a failure, and I'm letting that handle go on the social platforms that I held onto it for so long. But here it is. It'll always have a place right here on this YouTube channel, and what could have been. I call it a failure, but I'm still proud of what it was, and who knows, maybe down the line I can return to it.